I ask this question to start every episode, and I want to ask it continuously to start every episode. It's the same question every time. If one had to go, entire body of work, influence on culture, who would it be? Prince or Michael Jackson?
No, I mean,
I'm a Michael fan.
That's how we start. That's how we start around here.
Hot take, but I'm not a huge Prince fan.
Okay.
So that's the easy one for me.
Okay.
I can let Prince go. I can't let Michael.
Is there a reason why?
He just doesn't speak to me per se. I understand his influence to everyone else and on the culture, and I respect him immensely. But Michael there's something about Michael when he gets on stage. Folks were passing out, right?
Yeah.
Like you could feel Michael.
Yeah.
I heard you breathing hard.
No.
He's like,
I mean, you start like that, I gotta go Michael. I mean, you stick with Michael.
Michael has to stay.
Michael stays.
Michael stays.
Prince is out. But it's the same thing, you're right. People on stage passing out when he takes the stage on a regular basis.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Did Prince have that same reaction? Probably not as widely.
Prince was he was doing some other things.
No doubt. No doubt. But look, Michael Jackson can go anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Anywhere in
Right?
the world.
In
Global
the world. And so I think Prince got to go.
How about you, Sonny?
So I'm
I feel like this is a wild
dancer.
card. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So without the dance moves of Michael Jackson,
Right.
we just have to keep him.
Yeah.
He just influenced the dance world in such an incredible way.
How many people know you're a dancer? Like the people who.
Not in my professional life.
Yeah.
No.
That's interesting. We're gonna get into.
I'm not a dancer now. Let's
once a
call
dancer,
it
always a
formal.
dancer.
Former. Yeah.
All right.
To go against the grain, I would say musically Michael, but just politically activated, I'm in politics. So political always overshadows everything for me. I say Prince because he had a great impact in the community. And he did a lot of things. Yeah, and music too. He opened a lot of doors for a lot of people that now to this day benefit. So I would have to say Prince.
I've gotten to know you most recently, but it's always just been this honorable presence revolved around you. Share more about how that came about, how you got into politics, and so forth.
I didn't start out wanting to be in politics. I was obsessed, I'm still obsessed with Sex and the City. So I wanted to be Carrie Bradshaw, living in New York City with a car. That's how I knew I would make it. But my mom was like, you need to figure out something else to do because it's not gonna make you money. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a lawyer. I'll work for like Vogue. That'll be my Carrie Bradshaw. And I ended up going to an HBCU, and I had a professor who told me that I was more valuable than I saw myself. And when he said that, I was like, oh, okay, it sounds good, but I'm trying to go party, just like let me get through. But he really pushed me to challenge myself. So I started to look at the community around me, and I saw that every HBCU that I visit, whether for homecoming or whatever, was in a Black community. And then I looked at the demographics around it. I saw that the school education system wasn't great. There was not a grocery store within like walking distance. There was not a banking system. There were not a lot of Black people that owned property in those neighborhoods. And I started to really look at that and say like, why is that? And I went into policy and figured out that policy is the reason why Black communities are the way that they are. So I switched over everything and went into politics. I started off as, I interned actually for John Cranley's office. And then from there, I went into corporate America, and it was just something missing. And I wanted to challenge myself. So that's when I went back down to City Hall. I became a policy and communications director. And then I quickly became a chief of staff. I was the youngest chief of staff there. I was the only Black woman chief of staff.
In Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati. Which was interesting. It was an interesting space to navigate, being a Black woman and being young. I was a unicorn in the sense. So I had to navigate that space and find my own niche, so to speak. My own blueprint, I had to create it. So I had a lot of wonderful Black women that helped me and guided me along the way, like Yvette Simpson, Renee Mahathi Harris of Closing the Health Gap, just to help me be a Black woman in those spaces and walk in a room and not only just stand in the room, but take over the room. So politics for me was not my first choice. I got inspired by Obama's story. But I got inspired by community and what I saw around me and what I wanted to change, and this just passion and drive in me to make those changes.
That's dope. I mean, you're not in politics, but you are in politics to an extent because you cover some highly political things and sometimes controversial. I mean, without knowing the background of your world, I mean, I've known you well enough to understand that those are the things that you're most passionate about, specifically telling some of the stories that don't get told.
Exactly.
What's the drive behind that?
I think ever since I was a young kid, I've always been a why person, right? So when my mom would tell me to do something, I would be like, why? And she would say, don't backtalk, right? But I was just fascinated in people's why. Like how you got to this barbershop fascinates me. How you got to Kroger, your story about politics, you with FC. I'm just genuinely interested in why things happen. And I got into journalism because when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Saved by the Bell, but I wasn't eating my breakfast. So my mom was like,
Yeah, I know. Who was
you
it?
got to watch the news in the morning instead of watching Saved by the Bell reruns. And so I just fell in love with these people who were conveying information and out in the streets talking to people on a morning show. And when I got to high school, I joined the newspaper staff, and I realized that I could ask all of these nosy questions and really make an impact immediately. And I've always been attracted to and fascinated by stories that no one else wants to tell. There's just something about it. I love the underdog. I love rooting for the little guy. And those are the stories that stick out to me.
Well, I can tell. This is a show of transparency. I'm gonna be transparent here. The initiatives that we're doing and I'm leading in Cincinnati, we get a lot of the folks reaching out about coverage. And we have some folks who step into the moment and they're like, what's your name? What do you do? I'm thinking to myself, how do we get here? and Kyle always comes with the thunder, right? He's got the drones. He's got the best. I mean, literally, we postponed interviews because he felt like he needed this camera guy because they were tapped into this world,
Yeah.
right? You say you feel it, right? You're in the sports
100%.
world, but and I know, and you own an agency that does this type of work. How important is that to have intentional people behind these broadcasts?
I mean, if you don't have the best, then you don't have much, right? Like, you don't want to put a show on just to say you put a show on.
Exactly.
That's why you want the best camera operators, the best graphics folks, the best audio folks. When we put a show together, we want it to be the best.
The best.
Because if it's the best, it makes my job easier. It makes the analyst's job easier. If the sideline reporter's microphone doesn't work or her earpiece doesn't work, then her job's not. She can't focus on doing her job because she's distracted because her earpiece isn't working. But if you got a great audio tech to take care of it, then she doesn't have to worry about that. She can focus just on her job, and I can focus on my job, and so on and so forth. So if you're surrounding yourself with the best people, and that's not just on broadcast or on television or in politics or in a barbershop or wherever. If you have the best barbers in here, but you have one weak link, it's going to affect everybody in here. It's the same thing on a team. That's what I've always said. Like, you want the best people in your dressing room, and they got to have some talent. You know, you can't look like me out there on the soccer field and expect to win championships and cups and all that. But if you get a couple bad apples in there, and you have really talented people, it's going to ruin all that talent. And that's the same thing with any of our businesses or any of our operations, that you have to find the right people. And sometimes you got to remove a person who you thought was the right person. And you know, that's the hardest thing I've ever done as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Was removing somebody that I hired that I thought was the right person, but that was hurting our business. And
No, that's real.
You know, it propelled us forward, but it's still as hard of a day as you're gonna have as an entrepreneur, again, in any business, in any walk of life.
No, that makes sense. I mean, Sonny, what Kroger is doing right now, the intentional work revolved around supporting Black and brown people. You have to be on the scout for the best of the best, right? I met the women from Black Girl Ventures, and they are absolutely incredible. How does that process work in your mind as you guys are scouting out opportunities to support within the community, but make sure that the resources are provided to those who can make things happen?
Yeah. So if you think about your brand, a personal brand, whether it's the brand that you stand for in the city, the organization, et cetera, you always have to think about protecting. You're either protecting the brand or you're promoting the brand, right? And for me, it's like, if we're going to get after, let's talk about the Racial Equity Fund, right? That's kind of been
Sure.
the relationship that we've been building, Rico. And in the summer of 2020, our leadership called and said, hey, we want to put capital behind this. Hey, we want to put it in the foundation. We want to do this work. And my immediate reaction was like, no, because we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like we actually, if we look back at, kind of like yesterday, we suck at this work. But if we're willing to take those hard steps and those hard conversations, God, the work can be so fulfilling. And it's like, we went and I said, listen, we're gonna go ask the nation, we're gonna go ask the Kroger family of companies, coast to coast, who are you partnering with? And why, in the spirit of supporting Black and brown communities, who are you partnering with and why? And kind of the resounding answer was like, well, we give flowers to the whatever annual gala. And I was like, what? And like, or we give cookies to the kids at whatever, and I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about,
Sure.
right? So when you peel that back and you start to go, all right, we're actually starting with a whiteboard, which can be terrifying, but also like, again, incredibly fulfilling. Let's get after this. And so I literally said, anyone who would listen to me across, kind of our stakeholdership, if you have someone we should be putting on the list, I will call them. And we had conversations to invite the best of the best.
Yeah.
And people who are doing different things. And people who could align to what Kroger was trying to stand for in a way that like brought all of our why together. And it's been a really interesting journey. It is like I don't even want to call it the start. I don't even want to call it a scratch. I don't want to like, we're just like exploring.
Yeah.
But I am always interested in maybe the one who's going to get it done, the one who fills a specific gap that we as Kroger in our brand can help with, right? Like everybody can do hunger. Everybody can do supporting Black and brown communities. Well, what makes us different? And what are we gonna try to do different?
As you were talking, there was something going through my mind. There's one word that kept popping up, and it was opportunity. And I've gotten to know you personally, and I want you to speak on this as well, because Tommy and I met at the University of Cincinnati, and a good friend of mine was playing basketball at the time, and Tommy did a lot of the coverage, and that's how we kind of brewed up, and then he started Fourth Floor Creative, but I also know, I don't know if you knew, I knew this, but I also know that you were a front runner for the Cleveland Browns job for a while, right?
Yeah.
And that opportunity, that door closed, and then a window opened up with FC Cincinnati and Major League Soccer. Talk about that as it pertains to the word opportunity.
I mean, life's all about opportunity, right? Like it's just how these things work, right? So let's go back even further.
Wow.
To where I'm like 12 years old, and I'm a terrible athlete. Like I'm terrible. Like my dreams of being like Emmy.
His sons are all-stars. So
Yeah.
You said his son was an all-star.
Thanks to his mother. Thanks to his mother. My boy's got mom's ability. He's got a little bit of my speed. Other than that, he's all right. But I'm like 12, 13 years old, and I'm like, I'm not going to play in the NFL or play in the NBA or Major League Baseball. Like, what am I going to do? And I'll never forget, I'm watching NBA Inside Stuff with Ahmad Rashad.
Oh, yeah, that was a great show.
They're like, when we come back, we're going to go to Long Beach, California to a camp for broadcasters. And I'm like, hold on. So I lean in, and they show this Sportscasters Camp of America in Long Beach, California. Mom!
Right.
Get in here. I know where I'm going this summer. Long Beach, it's only like $1,000. Let's go. And it's 3,000 miles away, but we'll get there. And to her credit, I was like, you cancel every other camp you had me signed up for. I need to go to sportscasters camp because I won't stop talking.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm gonna go. And I went, and it was unbelievable. Like
Wow.
that's
At
when
12?
yeah,
Wow.
that's when you're like, this is my spot.
Yeah.
And Randy Polakar, a kid from Issaquah, Washington, is my roommate. Same 12-year-old, no athletic ability. Into broadcasting, we became buddies. Go to camp a few times, work camp a few times. And then after I graduated from Syracuse, I didn't go to work camp, he did. He is talking to this guy from the University of Akron. The guy from the University of Akron is like, I need someone to do women's basketball for me this year. He's like, well, my buddy just graduated from Syracuse and lives 45 minutes away from you.
Wow.
He called me and go, I just got you a job. He didn't tell me he was only gonna pay $35 a game. And I was be driving from my mom's house where I was living back and forth with all my gas money.
But he had a job for you,
But
though.
he had a job for me.
Yeah.
And I went down there and met with the guy, right? So for 4 years I did that. I got other responsibility. My role grew because I worked my tail off. I had 4 jobs because I was being paid, again, $35 a game to do the worst women's basketball you've ever seen. We won 17 games in 4 years. Not in 1 year, in 4 years. You can do the math, that's not very many. But those experiences were unbelievable, right? Yeah. And then my boss calls me in his office one day. He goes, hey, guess what? I'm going to the University of Cincinnati.
Pow.
You want to go? And you don't have to work at 4 jobs anymore. I got a full-time job for you at the University of Cincinnati. Also while I was at the University of Akron, went out for drinks with one of the basketball coaches because when you only win 17 games, you got to go for drinks quite often. And he's like, hey, I want you to meet my sister. His sister's my wife.
Oh, wow.
And then my boss brings me down here. And so on and so forth, all these things. And then my boss brings me down here. He's like, we have this really good soccer player, and we need someone to do soccer this year. And I done soccer at Akron. Sure, I'll do soccer. We had the guy who was drafted MLS, played 10 years. Now he works for us in Cincinnati. All these things, right? And then I do 9 years at the University of Cincinnati, and I need a new challenge. And so I leave right after I didn't get that Browns job,
Yep.
right? Cleveland Browns, my dream team. Like, that's what I grew up. Like, they're my #1 favorite team.
Yep.
And
Been a terrible 30 years.
I called out all the guns. Everybody called. Brian Kelly called to get me the job. The head coach of Notre Dame
Wow.
called the guy, and I didn't get the job.
Wow.
You know, understandably a little upset about that. But I don't want that job now. I'm the voice of a Major League Soccer team.
Yeah. That's
There's
incredible.
20-some of them in the country,
That's crazy.
and that's it. And I got one of them. Like, that's pretty cool. But who would have known when I didn't get that?
Yeah.
That another opportunity was right around the corner.
And those defeats are so hard. Like,
Yeah.
when you lose that when I came here to Cincinnati, I didn't want to come here. I wanted to go to Nashville. I had applied for a job, had an interview, was a
Right.
finalist, and I didn't get it.
Because you're from Columbus, Indiana.
The
right?
Columbus, the Columbus.
Okay.
But I was just telling someone the other day about how when they called and said I didn't get the job, that I was boohooing and crying, which isn't a surprise to anybody because I cried the job I had. But like, I was just like, I want to be in Nashville. This was a job for me, and I was crushed. I called out sick from work for like 2 days because I was like, I can't do this. And then my mom was like, well, what's for you won't miss you? And I was like, oh, no, this was for me. And then I got in the application process for this job, and this was a way better situation, but I couldn't see it, right? Like, I was gonna be working weekends in Nashville. When I came here, it was Monday through Friday. And then when I got this job, a year later, I got promoted. I would have still been in Nashville at the time,
Yeah.
and I would have not been eligible. I wouldn't have been eligible
Yeah,
for this
you wouldn't have been
opportunity.
eligible.
So,
I wonder if the Nashville folks know about the Emmy nomination.
I'm gonna send them a screen capture.
Yeah.
Like, hey, did you see what
Look
you
what
do?
you missed out on.
last year they DM'd me, asked me if I wanted to come back. For
Oh,
a job.
come
And it was
on,
just like,
man.
y'all didn't want me. but you know, I'm not bitter. But at the time, it's just hard to swallow
Yeah,
those
100%.
those losses. But you learn more from failure, if that's what you want to call it,
Yeah.
than you
Yeah.
ever do from success, I believe.
1,000,000%.
And
No,
it builds
that's-
character. It builds
That's
character.
crazy. I mean, look, you're working with our potential next mayor candidate, right? Or next mayor. He is the candidate now. And, you know, his last election didn't go the way he wanted it to. What are your thoughts about some of those kind of misses and picking yourself back up to do something fantastic again, and as that relates to you guys' campaign?
I mean, that's life. Like you said, it is, and this is something that I said to him, is that it's your strength is in getting back up. You can stay down, you can stay defeated, and you cannot do the things that you're gonna do, but just imagine how many people's freedom is attached to you. So if you stay down, you keep so many more people in bondage.
That's a
Yep.
word.
So I said, so through just getting up, right? Because one, I don't like to lose at anything that I do, but I've also experienced losses, whether it was loss of positions or it was loss of campaigns or loss of people. If I stayed where I was in those losses, everything that's attached to me and people who are attached to me to be free is attached to my liberation. So if I don't keep pushing forward, if we don't keep pushing forward, our city doesn't move. And right now we need our city to move forward because we have a ton of people who are screaming and crying out because they have been left behind. So I think his race, that congressional race, was a learning experience. It taught him a lot about what it meant to lose, but also what it means to get back up and keep pushing and keep going. Because you have to lead the city. I'm on your team, so now we got to win. So we got to get to it.
She told me that the first time we sat down for a glass of wine. She was like, "Look, we got to win. I'm not taking no L's."
Yeah,
right?
we have
That's
to
a fact.
win.
You know, when Tommy, you threw a curveball at me because you talked about sort of you seeing something on television and at a young age, it providing you a window of opportunity, right? You know, we'll get lighter later, but we've got to talk about this because it's happening in real time in our city. It's a lot of young gun violence going on, right? And it's not a coincidence it's happened during the warmest parts of the year, right? Where kids are not in school, and specifically after a year of being virtual and bottled up in that way. I mean, how important is that? Anybody can talk about this. I know several of you have children, about the windows of opportunity and expanding on current talents that the young have, and finding ways to, you know, programs is such a word that's overused, but in a way, program it to the point where we can get them into some other things. I mean, that we know how significant it is, but what are your thoughts on that?
No, it's massive, right? Like, there have to be opportunities and things for them to do, for lack of any other way to put it. Look, one of them happened right out here.
Right.
You know what I mean? On Father's Day, at 5:30, a 15-year-old gets shot in the leg.
Yeah.
I
Happened
mean,
the other day, 16-year-old on Walnut.
Yeah, it's two of them steps away from my front door, your front door.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We moved in here at the same time.
We did.
So, you know, it's an unfortunate reality. Like you said, you've been bottled up at home. We've all been bottled up at home. So everybody's getting out and they're doing stuff, and now, like, but at the same time, not a lot of programs have come back online. You know, like a lot of places where they would have activities or teams, sports, all these things that a lot of us probably took for granted, of all types of different backgrounds.
Big time.
And everything prior to March of 2020, that this was just available, right?
Yeah.
You could go to this place and play basketball. And the biggest fight was whether or not you got fouled, not whatever they're shooting each other on, you know, for in the street, right? But some of that stuff just hasn't come back. And for whatever reason, funding, COVID, because the people who sponsor it or, you know, cohabit it haven't, you know, that's not their protocols, right? They're not doing it. They're not doing indoor stuff. We don't have kids do indoor stuff. You know what I mean? Like, people just haven't done that yet. And I think that lack of opportunity in many ways for those activities is definitely escalating what we're seeing on the streets.
Yeah.
I think
Any thoughts? Yeah.
I think for me, I go back to my professional world, and I feel like we're so desensitized to gun violence.
You almost have to be, though.
Yeah, but it's sad, right?
It is sad.
Like when we talk about the shooting at King Super in the, was that spring? Like, it wasn't even, when they released the number, you were just like, oh, 10 or 11. Like, you know, like, and that's sad because we've seen 20s and 30s and 40s. Like, I remember I was working the day that there was the shooting in Las Vegas at the country music concert. And I gasped the first time that they released the number. And I remember thinking, like, this is not normal. But then here over 4th of July, when we had the shooting, you know, when we're having discussions, it was like, well, it was just 2 kids shot. And it's like, but 2 kids is too many, right?
Yeah,
One
way
is too many.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy how desensitized we all are as a culture right now to gun violence, and it's sad.
It is sad. I'm sure this hits your office like
Crazy. I think gun violence, like when we're looking at gun violence, I think so many people take that and then they want to add more police, right? They want to add more cops to the street and all of that, but we have to realize that over-policing does not stop violence. It doesn't. Opportunity creation of programs, creation of different spaces for people to come and heal. A lot of it is unpacked trauma. It's unlearned trauma, it's generational trauma that people don't know how to, in a sense, let it go or release.
And that takes time, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It takes time, and it also takes this like destigmatizing of therapy, right? And mental health and getting everything together, like in your body and in who you are. But I think when it comes to a city, allocating funding and resources towards communities is what we need to start doing. It's not always about defunding the police or defunding social services, or public services, but it's about putting more investment in social services so that people have opportunities, so children can see other avenues other than basketball and sports and all of those things, and then mentorship too. We have to give back to our communities. So I think that gun violence is something that's always going to be rampant in our city unless we start investing in neighborhoods and investing in communities.
What I'm really proud of, to piggyback off of what you were saying, is some of the idols, in a way, stepping up, right? Last night we had a big one. Simone Biles said, you know what? I'm going to take care of my mind first, and I'm going to worry about everything else later, right? Gold medals are not that significant to my world to the point where I'm going to be destructive to myself. What were your thoughts on that when you saw that news?
Oh my gosh, I respect her so much. It was like a split second, and she just stood with her team and she was like, you know what? I've seen you do better than me. I've seen you do better than me, and what I just did, I don't know who that was, right? And I just thought it was a moment of either. I think a lot of people can kind of be like, strap on and get it done, right? Like, you made the team, get it done, and you're Simone Biles, you're the GOAT. Look, great, like, that's something that's like, when she says, like, the weight of the world is on my shoulders, I think people are like, yeah, okay, again, strap up and get it done, because that's what you
And it
are.
has
But it's
been
like,
for like 9
but you named her
years.
the GOAT, like, that's incredible pressure. Of course being an Olympian is incredible pressure. I don't give a I don't care what you do,
I think you can
right?
curse on this. Can you curse on this?
Sonny says Kroger is a major sponsor, so if Sonny does it, I think it's okay.
But I mean, like,
beep it.
it doesn't matter if you're on the, like, swimming and gymnastics. Those are and then track and field, right? Those are the ones that everybody watches because they're the ones highlighted in primetime. It's kind of like, because Michael Phelps was even talking last night.
Right.
Like, when he was the face of the Summer Olympics, he was like,
terrible spot.
that's just the most horrible thing you can do to an athlete. I respected her. I think in that split moment, she said, I'm either going to be the Simone Biles that I wish I was, like, that I want to be,
Right.
or I'm going to let my team go kick ass.
Yeah,
And I'm going to stand with them,
yeah.
but I don't have to be the spotlight.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the Simone Biles that everybody else has called me. I just get to be me. And again, that's a human.
Yeah.
We all just need to be us.
That's a part of the problem. You know, we treat athletes like robots, right? We treat celebrities like robots, like they can't, like they're programmed in a way that's so different from the rest of humanity that they don't deal with things, right? You know, I'm not sure how much of this has come up in MLS, but I know that you've seen it in that world.
Whether it's LeBron or Michael Phelps or Simone Biles or a Major League Soccer player or somebody who's on the news or somebody who's calling a soccer match, that, you know, varying levels of popularity, that somebody's coming at you and being critical, and you have to, like, that part you have to turn off. Like, you can't let it affect the way you're going to do the news tonight, because if you do, if you look at it after you've won newscast and someone's like, damn, you suck, then you're all going to suck tonight at 11, because it's going to be all in your head. And I've done that at times myself, where I've looked at stuff and then the next game I'm a mess because I'm all thinking about, oh, I can't make that mistake again. You know, I said the wrong stat, or I said the wrong name, or I mean, I infamously, we did an Open Cup game, and when we were in the USL, we weren't in Major League Soccer yet, but we had gotten the bid, so we knew we were going to Major League Soccer. And we played Minnesota United, and it was in our place, so I did the broadcast. And of course, all Minnesota United fans were watching, right? And they had a player, Christian Ramirez, and very good, prominent player. We had just had a guy on our team, Christian Martinez. And for whatever reason, I called Christian Martinez like 12 times.
12?
It's pretty embarrassing.
One or
right?
two, okay. 12.
I don't know what it was.
You was in your mode.
It was one of those things that you just could not. I couldn't break it. I couldn't shake it.
Yeah.
And man, Twitter was bad after that game. But you know what I mean? Because every Minnesota United fan wanted to let me know that it was Christian Ramirez and not Christian Martinez, and I knew that. But for whatever reason, I couldn't say the guy's damn name.
Yeah.
You know, but my point is that like everybody goes through mental stuff, right? Everybody goes through crap days. I mean, you were talking about like having bad days, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll say like one of my worst days as entrepreneur early on was when I thought I had a friend who was gonna do business with us so we could get rolling.
You told me the story.
Yeah, and I seen on Twitter he's doing business with another company. I mean, I was like shaking. Like my coworker was like, "Yo, you seen Twitter? They're not working with us. They got somebody else on campus right now." I remember like shaking, sitting there. We had a little tiny like 200 square foot office. I'm like, I got to go home. I'll be back.
Yeah.
And I went home and just cried and cried and cried for like half an hour. But you know what I did? I bent over, I got my teeth, I jammed them back up in my gums, took a shower, and went back to work and said, screw that.
Yeah.
Let's move on, right? Let's find the next one. But, you know, when you talk about Simone Biles and like what she has gone through and all that pressure of the world on her,
A microscope.
right? Like
For almost a decade.
you can't understand that. And for her to be able to step back and admit, like you said, that I'm not in the right place. Because we've all been there where we're not in the right place, right? And you all got to have somebody to talk to, whether it's your therapist, your mom, your spouse, whoever, your aunt, whoever it might be. Everybody's got somebody to talk to, I hope.
2 years ago, I was gone from work for about a month, and I was in a really dark place. And my employer was understanding, and they allowed me to take the time that I needed to heal. And a lot of it had to do with me not being completely open about being a gay man with my family. Like I was out to my friends, but I wasn't out to all of my family members. And it just got to a point where I couldn't separate the two anymore, you know? And unfortunately, a lot of people deal with that. And it freed me so much to come out to my family. And they were so embracing and so welcoming and so loving. And I don't know why it took me so long, but that buildup, when it finally got to me, it led me to all of these different headspaces. And I was just in a really bad position. And I was gone for, I think a month, maybe 5 or 6 weeks actually. But every day I would get the most encouraging emails from viewers and people just letting me know that they were rooting for me. And they didn't know what I was going through. But it inspired me to continue to go to therapy. It inspired me to work on myself and to continue healing. And it was the most difficult, I think, 5-6 weeks of my life, but I learned so much about myself, about my friends, and about my family. And if I would not have taken that time to myself, I don't know where I would be today. I know I wouldn't be here. Like I was just not on this path. And I hid it so well because I'm sure most people have no clue. They had no clue that I was going through anything because I would go to work and I would smile. My boyfriend didn't even really know.
Wow.
You know, to the extent of how bad it really was. But it was, I feel like there's my life before that event and there's my life after that event. And it's so much better on the other side. And so when I saw Simone go through that, I was inspired by her because she did it publicly. I wasn't ready to talk about it publicly when I came back. And I just thank people for giving me the space and the grace, but we didn't really address it. And to this day, people will come up to me and say things like, we missed you when you were gone, was everything okay? But they won't pry. And I appreciated that because sometimes you just need that space to be alone with your thoughts and to speak with a therapist. Like your pastor or your spiritual leader is great, but you need a trained professional to walk you through what your brain is going through. And we don't talk about mental health enough. And I didn't want to talk about it because there was a stigma. But I think we're moving past that.
Yeah. Your wife is in healthcare field. How was that year being supportive of, I mean, you know what I mean? We hyper focus on healthcare professionals, and then your husband is an educator.
He is an
correctly.
educator.
So I got a good memory. So
Yeah, you do.
how was that being on the support side of the past 19 months?
No, I
20
mean,
months?
it's insanely important, right? Like, you talk about mental health. I'm sure on the educator side it's the same thing, but like for healthcare professionals, and my dad retired in the tail end, he was a doctor. So he retired in January, so he kind of got through it, and because he's in his 70s, they told him that, like, he didn't get close to anybody.
Right.
You know, because he was higher risk. So he's like, if this person's suspected COVID, yeah, we'll get somebody younger to take care of him. So he kind of got lucky on the way out. But like my wife, she's in the nursing home. So like she's only dealing with high risk elderly patients.
Ooh.
So, I mean, it's super stressful. No work from home, that's impossible. Right? So I had to shift and be at home with the boys. And like, being a teacher was the worst professional experience of my life. Like,
I got pictures of my phone. You got that Grey Goose cup.
Yeah, I've been drinking at like 11:30 in the morning. It was like somebody sent me that meme. It was like my kid's teacher got fired for drinking on the job, and I'm like, yeah, that was me. I'm like, it was terrible.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm trying to run a business, I'm trying to do this, that, and other thing. I'm trying to survive mentally, and I got 2 kids who are trying to survive online school at home, and my wife is at work where it's insanely stressful, so I'm trying to have dinner ready and the house clean so she feels better when she gets home. Like the toll that has been taken by like medical professionals, and I'm sure for others too, and into education, like we won't know for a while the toll that is taking on people, like patients. Like she's like 2 people died today. Yeah. Like, and this is sad. This is like after vaccination started, but a nurse didn't get vaccinated and caught COVID and came to work and gave it to 2, 80 or 90-year-old guys, and they died. Wow. Like, because they're 90 years old and got COVID. Like,
who's signing up to become educators in this, right? And if you think about, he's a special education lead too. So he's looking at the 100 plus special education population in his school.
Who have to be face to face.
Exactly. Who have, access points that they need. They're not getting serviced. What does virtual mean to them? I mean, it was incredibly, I think there were moments of his days that he was like, what the hell am I doing?
Oh,
what?
100%.
Like, I can't reach a child. I can barely reach him when we're together. Right. And trying to inspire the fact that, like, you don't have to be college bound, but what do you want to be? What interests you? How do I provide, kind of professional pathways for you? It's like, Kyle didn't show up to the Zoom call. Yeah. I'm here, right? Kyle is at home, so he's also doing high school kids. Oh my gosh, so many stories of high school kids who were watching their siblings, teaching their siblings, 100%. Because no one is at home because they're at work making the living, right? So they're like, I became a pseudo mom, dad, and I was a brother, but now I'm feeding them lunch and I have to get them on their Zoom call at 1 o'clock or whatever their check-in is. And it's kind of like, that's why they, like, that duality of understanding the high school kids' roles through that lens was just every day I'm like, the work you do, Nate, my husband's name, is so much more important. One child at a time. Like, I can't even tell you how much more impactful what you do every day.
That's real.
And just like, I don't give a crap if Rico didn't show up, but you did for him, right? And like, just that constant is just something that I just admire so much.
That's real. We're in July right now, and we got the back half of the year to look forward to. And it probably looks much different than we anticipated, however we anticipated. What are you looking forward to?
Looking forward to, first and foremost, vacation.
Yeah.
It's time to get away for a few days because that hasn't been an opportunity. And then number 2, growth. You gotta keep growing. You gotta grow yourself. You gotta grow your business. You gotta grow as a broadcaster. You gotta grow as a husband or a spouse or partner or, a father, whatever it is. You gotta remember your personal growth. So I look forward to that.
How about you?
Winning this election.
There you go.
And I would also say just resting and refilling myself after this year and then after 2020, because I've worked the entire 2020 into 2021. So just winning this election for people. I think this year for me, the word was freedom. So that's freeing my people mentally, emotionally, physically. So this election will represent that.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Kyle?
I am running the Flying Pig Half Marathon.
Whoa.
So I'm excited. This will be my 5th half. I've done 1 full. I'll never do
this. This makes sense because Kyle cycles in front of me, right? And it's like, what is he doing exactly? But anyway, go ahead.
So I'm looking forward to that because it's always a challenge to push yourself for
Yeah.
13 miles. But then weddings, like I had a bunch canceled in 2020 that are coming back this fall. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. That
to be
makes sense.
reunited with friends and family in a wedding setting will be fun.
That'd be good. Sunny.
Mine is not about me. My husband is finishing up his second master's
Awesome.
in school administration. And if y'all know or have had a spouse or a family member go through education while you're all both trying to work full time, like it's a
With children.
it's a journey together, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm getting a master's too, but it's like you got to go through it together, and I'm just really excited for
Yeah.
what's to come for him.
Yeah, it's such important conversations. We don't always talk about the most serious of things. We have fun with it, but I think that's the balance of what we've been able to create here and what we'll continuously create. And so I'm looking forward to sharing that with everybody and not just the 10 folks in this room. So it's going to be really exciting. Thanks for joining us. This has been really,
I look
really
at the
awesome.
camera all the time.
Yeah, I know you do. I'm one of those guys.